This is a quick video around how I measure the business impact of LinkedIn ads. And the reason why I want to record this is that this can be actually fairly straightforward, but isn't always obvious. And I think that a lot of marketing teams that I speak with are often looking for some sort of direct response action to LinkedIn still, when the impact felt from LinkedIn isn't always in the people that see an ad, click an ad, and fill out a form. So I wanted to walk through first why last touch measurement doesn't always work, and then run through two different methodologies that I can use with clients, have used in the past to measure the business impact of LinkedIn. So, not just leads, but as well as actual customers, revenue, etc. The methodologies can apply to all of that. So first, why last touch measurement doesn't work. As I just called out, buyers are rarely seeing an ad, clicking on an ad, and converting when they're on LinkedIn in particular. It's a tall ask to ask someone to stop scrolling, go to a landing page, and convert filling out a form, especially for a cold audience. It does happen sometimes happens a bit more often for a warm audience or an audience that is familiar with a brand. But again, scrolling on LinkedIn is often a passive action, considering that the majority of traffic is also mobile. Mobile experiences on landing page forms, etc., are not always strong. So it can be an action that requires a lot of friction. And that's why I often see when working with B2B clients that the impact of LinkedIn ads appear elsewhere, particularly a lot of the leads that are influenced or impacted by LinkedIn show up in direct traffic or organic search. So if you're in the B2B space running LinkedIn campaigns and your lead report looks something like this when pulling it from, GA4 or your CRM, don't worry, you're not alone. That's often what I see as well, but that doesn't mean that the LinkedIn campaigns aren't working. So now I'll dive into the first methodology that I'll use for clients to evaluate the business impact of their LinkedIn ads. I'll call out quickly that the ideal methodology will include a holdout audience, but if you're already running campaigns, you don't have a holdout audience in place, this is still a decent way to get a baseline understanding of how LinkedIn is influencing the deals you're seeing in your CRM and the new customers that you're generating as a result. So first, I'll go to the LinkedIn Campaign Manager in the left-hand pane, open up the plan dropdown, and go to the companies report as highlighted here. This report gives you a ton of information around all of the companies that are seeing your ads via impressions, as well as the same companies that are engaging with your ads, clicking on them, etc. You can filter this campaign or this report by campaign, as well as date range, although the date range filters aren't super user friendly. I think it's something like every 7, 30, 60, or 90 days. So you're limited there. You can't do a custom date range at the time that I'm recording this. But basically, go to this report, pick your campaign, your date range, and export. And I recommend don't delete any data from the report. The column that contains the LinkedIn company page URL will be important. From here, go to your CRM and basically just pull a matching report. So create a deal report, select the same date range, and the need to have fields would be deal name, company name, and LinkedIn company page. I understand that not every CRM will automatically enrich company data with the LinkedIn company page. So in that case, company name is okay. If you can go to like a Clay and pull out company LinkedIn page, that's great too. But as well as the need to have fields, some nice to haves are deal stage, deal amount, and original source. You can understand what deals are still open, which are SQLs, which have been closed won, closed lost, how much are these in terms of pipeline revenue, etc. And you can create a couple different analyses from this. But once you've got your two reports, run a good old-fashioned VLOOKUP, and you'll get a table that looks something like this, where you've got your deals, companies associated with the deals, and you can see here, for example, in this made-up data, that some deals, which your CRM may be saying are sourced from like direct traffic or organic search, have actually seen a ton of LinkedIn impressions. So that tells you that there's probably an influence there. And this is a really good way to understand, okay, even though my CRM is saying that people ended up directly on the site to convert and fill out this form, or they came to the site via organic search, potentially branded organic search, to fill out a form, that LinkedIn may have drove them there. The thing with this type of analysis is that it's correlational, not causational. So it's a good starting point, but if you really want to understand the true cause and incremental impact of LinkedIn, I like to use some sort of holdout audience. So what does that mean? There are a lot of different ways to do this, but two common ways are, one, creating a company account list. So very simple, takes the form of like a targeted ABM list that you'll upload to LinkedIn and then run ads against this list of companies. What I recommend is having another list that has a similar composition, but this list of companies is not exposed to LinkedIn ads. And ideally, everything else that is done to these two lists is the same. So you've got your test and control list. Two, the other option is using LinkedIn industry segments. So that could be your native firmographic filtering, like industry, job title, skills, etc. And then oftentimes the control and test groups are created based off of geographic locations. So let's say in LinkedIn, you're only targeting Texas, and then in your CRM, you're going to monitor New York State as your control group. When using geolocations, I would also say be mindful of the impact of remote work, given that this can skew results a bit. If you got any questions there, feel free to reach out and we can chat through workarounds there. So once you align on what type of holdout audience or holdout list you want to use, run your campaign and then repeat the same process from before. Pull the LinkedIn company engagement report, align it with your CRM, create your table, your spreadsheet of companies and deals that were influenced by these campaigns. I think the reason why this can be helpful is it gets to give you a bit more accurate results compared to using the list in total, because there can be companies from the test list that that become a deal, but they actually didn't see any LinkedIn impression volume for whatever reason, budget constraints, etc. So once you've got your lists, what you can then do are run two different variations of an incremental impact analysis. So this first example is using the account list. So you've got your company ABM list in LinkedIn, you've got the control list in your CRM, and all that you're going to do is basically take the number of new customers in your test segment that were exposed to your ads, subtract the number of new customers in your control segment that didn't see any ads, and boom, you've got the number of incremental new customers from your LinkedIn campaign. Very simple math example here. Like I said, pretty straightforward, pretty easy, but this tells you that, sure, your LinkedIn campaign may have driven 100 total new customers when looking at influence, but even if you didn't run ads within that test segment, you would have generated 75 new customers anyway. So the incremental impact from LinkedIn is 25. And in a moment, I'll run through how you actually apply this to performance, understanding if that's good, plan, optimize around that number, etc. However, before jumping into that, the second option, as I called out, is running a GeoLift test, but this can be a bit more complicated. So for example, you'll have your test segment and your control segment, but you also want a control period for both segments where neither segment has been exposed to any LinkedIn ads. And ideally, the regions, states, etc., that you're picking have similar performance. They're not going to be one-to-one because that's life. But then when you run the test, what you may notice is, for example, ideally, the test segment will see an increase in, signups, leads, whatever. But the control segment may also see some unusual behavior. Like there could be a lift here as well. So how do we account for that? That often requires a good bit of statistical muscle, which candidly I don't have. But if you're like me and don't have a stat degree, you can turn to a tool like ChatGPT. This is an example. Just plug in the results of your test, the control period, the test period, and your two segments, and then it'll spit out the lift in terms of percent lift, total lifted customers, whatever it is, and you're good to go from there. Lastly, as I said, once you have the number of incremental customers, what do you actually do with that? So like I said, very straightforward from the beginning. You take your calculation to get your incremental customers, and then all that you do is divide that by your LinkedIn ad spend, and you've got your cost per new incremental customer from LinkedIn. From here, you can say, hey, is that profitable based on my net margin goals? Is that in range with what we'd expect? Will this allow us to continue investing here and scale? Do we need to make optimizations to creative audience, etc.? All these different questions that you can then pursue, but this is the data that you can use to guide those exercises. Additionally, outside of a more defined cost per new incremental customer from LinkedIn, there are long-term brand awareness considerations. Again, if we take the 95-5 principle, if 95% of potential customers aren't in market at any given time, we'll want to cater to them over the long term. You can also review the cumulative change in your cost per incremental new customer as the year or years progress. So in theory, if you continue to run ads against the same audience and more of that 95% become in market, your cumulative cost per incremental customer from these campaigns may change, may improve. But that's a bit more advanced, a bit more complex, a bit more long term. But that's all that I've got. That's how I analyze the actual business impact for LinkedIn for my own clients, and happy to follow up with any questions if anyone wants to dive into specifics.